1960s were a boom time for the global auto industry. Car makers, big and small, were chasing new ideas, stretching design limits to the edge of reason, and sometimes right past it. In the race to be bold and different, a few cars rolled off the line looking nothing like anything that came before. Awkward, misplaced, and downright bizarre. The kind of cars that made people stop and stare. Not in awe, but in confusion. But hold your laughter, because behind every offbeat curve and oddball decision lies a story about wild ambition, strange market bets, and sometimes accidental brilliance. Today, we're taking a ride through 10 of the weirdest, ugliest, most ridiculous cars of the 1960s. Machines that you probably wouldn't fall in love with at first sight. But trust us, once you see them, you'll never forget them. Number 10, 1956, Fiat Multipla 600. In 1956, Fiat set out to solve a practical problem: how to fit an entire family into a car the size of a shoebox. The result? The Multipla 600, one of the earliest minivans in history. It had 3 rows of seats for 6 passengers, tucked into a body that looked more like a toy than a touring car. The design was unforgettable. A tall, flat windshield led into oversized round headlights, giving the front end the expression of a wide-eyed goldfish. The hood bulged outward, then flowed awkwardly into a sharply squared-off rear, like a delivery van that someone forgot to finish. And with tiny wheels tucked under that bulbous frame, the whole car looked comically unbalanced, as if it might tip over in a stiff breeze. But underneath the awkward lines was a car that made perfect sense. It was affordable, fuel-efficient, easy to repair, and could navigate tight European streets with ease. In post-war Italy, that was gold. Taxi drivers loved it. So did big families with small budgets. Then, in 1998, Fiat brought the Multipla name back, with a design even more bizarre. The original was never about beauty. It was about bold solutions wrapped in weird shapes. And that's why we remember it. Number 9, 1961. Renault 4. Launched in 1961, the Renault 4 didn't try to be elegant, futuristic, or even all that stylish. And maybe that's exactly why it worked. With over 8 million units sold across more than 100 countries, it wasn't just a car, it was a solution. Its design was as plain as they come. A tall, squared-off body, flat surfaces, and almost no curves to speak of. The round headlights were crammed into awkwardly square bezels. The grille looked like it belonged on a filing cabinet, and the rear end. It resembled the lid of a toolbox. Nothing flowed, nothing matched. It looked like utility on 4 wheels. But for the people who drove it, students, farmers, working folks, none of that mattered. The Renault 4 was tough, cheap to run, easy to fix, and surprisingly roomy. And somewhere along the road, this boxy little oddball became more than just practical. It became loved. By the late 60s, it had been adopted by the hippie movement across Europe. People painted them with daisies, slogans, and peace signs. It wasn't sleek, but it was sincere. And like many things from that era, it wasn't beautiful, but it meant something. Number 8, 1960 Zaz 965. It looked like a toy, and in some ways, it was. The Zaz 965, built in Soviet Ukraine, took heavy inspiration from the Fiat 600, but the end result felt like something straight out of a cartoon. Its body was short, squat, and almost perfectly round. Big bulging headlights gave it a wide-eyed, startled expression, like a frog that had just seen something shocking. The wheels were tiny, almost comically so, making the whole car look like it had been shrunk in the wash. The rear end was flat and featureless, with doors that opened suicide style from the front. There were no curves of elegance, no lines of flair, just pure utilitarian form, shaped by necessity rather than aesthetics. And that was the whole point. Built for a country recovering from war and shortages, the Zaz 965 was designed to be cheap, durable, and easy to fix. It had a small rear-mounted engine and could carry 4 passengers, tightly. No frills, no extras, just function. But despite its awkward looks, this little oddball became a Soviet staple. Nicknamed the Hunchback, it was everywhere, from city streets to village roads. Strange as it looked, it moved a nation, one bumpy ride at a time. Number 7, 1965, AMC Rambler Marlin. If there were ever a car with an identity crisis, the AMC Rambler Marlin would be it. Introduced in 1965 as American Motors' answer to the rising demand for sporty fastbacks, it started off with promise. A solid, squared-off front end that looked confident and composed. From the nose, you might have expected a bold muscle coupe ready to challenge Detroit's best. But take a few steps back, and things get weird. Instead of continuing that muscular tone, the Marlin's roofline swooped downward in a soft, bulbous curve, ending in a rear that looked like it belonged to an entirely different car. The result? A body that felt mismatched, half muscle, half bubble, with no clear idea of who it was trying to impress. Inside, it wasn't bad. Plush seating, a clean dashboard, and plenty of room for long drives. But it was heavy, and that extra weight dragged down performance just as muscle cars were heating up. Buyers weren't sure what to make of it, and sales showed it. The Marlin stuck around for just 3 years before AMC quietly pulled the plug. Stylish? Not quite. Sporty? Not really. But unforgettable? In its own quirky way? Absolutely. Number 6, 1960 Dodge Dart Phoenix. If subtlety had an enemy in 1960, it was the Dodge Dart Phoenix. Meant to be the upscale version of the Dodge Dart lineup, the Phoenix rolled onto the scene looking like a rolling jewelry box, absolutely drenched in chrome. Grille, headlight surrounds, tail fins, you name it, Dodge plated it. The front end was a spectacle, a long nose with an oversized grille that looked ready to inhale pedestrians, paired with massive dual headlights that screamed for attention, and around back, giant tail fins that could slice air like a rocket ship, only flashier. It wasn't so much designed as it was unleashed. Inside, the Phoenix offered plenty of space and a comfortable ride. It even packed some solid V8 power under that glittering hood. But performance wasn't the issue. Taste was. The car's design was overloaded, chaotic, and loud in all the wrong ways. It was as if the styling department ran out of ideas halfway through and just kept adding chrome until something stuck. Buyers didn't bite. Within just 2 years, Dodge retired the Phoenix, quietly pushing it off stage. It aimed for luxury and flair, but landed somewhere between a jukebox and a spaceship. Number 5, 1961, Citroën Ami 6. There are cars that look a little odd, and then there's the Citroën Ami 6. Released in 1961 as a bridge between the minimalist 2CV and the futuristic DS, the Ami was the brainchild of Flaminio Bertoni, the same man who penned the iconic Citroën DS. But this time, it seems even a genius wanted to get a little weird. The most striking feature? The rear window slopes inward, not outward, defying every design principle known to man. Up front, the headlights were uneven, the fenders off balance, and the body lines twisted in strange directions. From certain angles, the car looked like it had been dropped, flipped, and hastily reassembled. It was a sedan with the proportions of a cartoon. And yet, it worked. The Army 6 was quiet, fuel-efficient, and perfect for rural French roads. It offered enough comfort for long drives and enough quirkiness to stand out in a sea of boring boxes. Despite its looks, or maybe because of them, it sold well. Over time, it gained a reputation not just for being ugly, but for being proudly, defiantly different. It wasn't beautiful, but it had the kind of charm you don't forget. Number 4. 1968. Marcos Mantis. When it comes to strange proportions, few cars went as far off the rails as the Marcos Mantis, launched in 1968 by British sports car maker Marcos. Built with racing in mind, the Mantis had the heart of a track machine. But the body? That was another story. Its hood stretched out like a runway, absurdly long even by GT standards. The cockpit, low and narrow, looked like it had been squashed between two fenders in a vice grip. The hidden headlights gave the front a confused expression, like someone had glued on the nose from another car altogether. And the whole design felt stitched together, as if Frankenstein himself had taken up automotive design. It wasn't just weird, it was wildly unbalanced. The proportions made people stare, but not in admiration. It looked fast, yes, but also fragile, uncomfortable, and just wrong. And yet, under that bizarre body was a serious machine. Lightweight, powerful, and capable on the track. But buyers weren't convinced. The looks were too much, the market too small, and production ended almost as quickly as it began. Today, it's a museum oddity, a rolling what if with horsepower and personality to spare. Strange? Absolutely. Forgettable? Never. Number 3. 1969. Bond Bug. If a cartoon character ever needed a getaway car, the Bond Bug would have been it. Launched in 1969, this bright orange, three-wheeled wedge was aimed squarely at young British drivers looking for something cheap, cheeky, and different. And different it was. With its triangular shape and loud tangerine paint, the Bug looked like a mix between a doorstop and a space-age lawnmower. It didn't have side doors. Instead, the entire roof flipped forward for you to climb in, like some kind of automotive escape pod. The interior was basic at best, the engine was small and sluggish, and the ride could get twitchy, especially since there was only one rear wheel holding everything steady. Stability? Questionable. Speed? Not really. Style? Well, it depends who you ask. Despite its quirks, and there were plenty, the Bond Bug built a cult following. It showed up in TV ads, magazine covers, and retro photo shoots. People didn't buy it because it was practical. They bought it because it looked like nothing else on the road. It may not have been a great car by conventional standards, but for sheer personality, the Bond Bug delivered in spades. Number 2. 1958 Subaru 360. It was small, really small. The Subaru 360, Subaru's very first car, looked more like a wind-up toy than a road-going vehicle. Introduced in 1958 as Japan's answer to affordable personal transport, it fell into the country's K-car category, tiny, lightweight, and easy on fuel. But when it crossed the ocean to the US, well, Americans didn't quite know what to make of it. The body was round and puffy, with frog-eyed headlights and a chopped-off tail. The doors opened in the old suicide style. The roof arched like a gumdrop, and the whole car seemed barely bigger than a washing machine. Under the hood, or rather, behind the rear axle, was a 360 cubic centimeter two-stroke engine that barely managed 50 miles per hour on a good day. Critics called it slow, unsafe, and laughably underpowered. One American magazine went so far as to name it the most unsafe car in America. Ouch. But back home in Japan, it was a hit. Cheap, easy to park, and ideal for tight city streets, the Subaru 360 became a favorite among first-time buyers. Today, it's a rare collector's gem, especially among fans of classic Japanese oddities. Tiny? Yes. Ridiculous? Maybe. But unforgettable? Absolutely. Number 1. 1962 to 1965. Peel P50. If you've ever wondered what would happen if someone gave a mini fridge a steering wheel, the Peel P50 is your answer. Built on the Isle of Man between 1962 and 1965, it holds the title as the smallest production car in the world. And once you see it, you'll never forget it. At just 1.34 meters long and weighing under 130 pounds, the P50 was smaller than some golf carts and lighter than most adult drivers. It had 3 wheels, 1 door, 1 seat, and a single headlight. No reverse gear either. If you wanted to back up, you had to hop out and drag it by the handle. From the side, it looked like a lunchbox with windows. The interior could barely fit 1 person, and a grocery bag. Maybe. Comfort? Not really. Speed? Not much of that either. But charm? Off the charts. Though it was built as a city runabout, the P50 became a cult icon decades later, thanks in part to a hilarious feature on Top Gear and a 6-figure auction price that stunned collectors. It may have been the smallest car ever made, but its legacy? That's anything but tiny. Not every car was built to be beautiful, and frankly, not every car needs to be. Sometimes it's the oddballs, the misfits, the ones that looked outdated the day they left the factory, that leave the most lasting impressions. These strange machines may not have won style points, but they carved out a place in automotive history all their own. So how about you? Which one made you laugh, scratch your head, or brought back an old memory? Ever seen one of these rolling question marks in person? Maybe your neighbor owned one. Maybe you did. Drop your stories in the comments. We'd love to hear your take on these wonderfully weird wheels. And if you enjoyed this trip down the road less traveled, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell, because we've got more forgotten legends, strange designs, and jaw-dropping moments coming your way. Stick around. The ride's just getting interesting.